Hello everyone, I hope you all remember the topic that is we are discussing from the last video, which is nothing but state government. So in the previous class we discussed already the information related to the legislative assembly. So for the continuation for the topic today in this class, let us talk about the information related to the powers and functions of legislative assembly. So here the today topic is powers and functions. Powers and functions of legislative assembly. So here the legislative assembly also called Vidhana Sabha. What is the other name for the legislative assembly here? Vidhana Sabha. So now what are the powers and functions of legislative assembly? So here the powers and functions are broadly categorized into, first of all, we can say that legislative powers. Legislative powers, financial powers, executive or administrative we can say, and electoral powers, and finally the other powers. So these are the major powers and functions of legislative assembly. So what is the first one? Legislative power, financial power, executive power, electoral powers and other powers. Now let us discuss the major function and power of the legislative assembly, which is nothing but legislative powers. Legislative powers. So now, what is the meaning for the word legislation? Legislation is nothing but converting a bill into act. What is that? Converting a bill into act. Generally, what is the process to convert a bill into act? Lower house should be approve that bill, and after that they should send that bill to the upper house, and finally governor signature. So here the state legislature majorly they are making bills on the subject matters like state list and concurrent list. I hope you are remember this topic, right? See, when we discussing the first lesson, our government is federal form of government. Means what? The functions of our country, our government are categorized into three types. One will be union list, state list, concurrent list. Here, legislative assembly is making bills on the subjects like state list and concurrent list. Again, I will recollect. Union list means we can say that central. How many subjects are there? 100 subjects are there. Means on those 100 subjects, central parliament means union parliament will make laws. And state, how many? 61. Concurrent, 52. So here the legislative assembly majorly making laws on state list means how many? 61 subjects plus concurrent list. How many here? 52. Totally the state legislature will make bills on state subjects as well as concurrent subjects. Example, one of the major state list topic is nothing but here we can say that providing law and order, maintenance of law and order, that will becomes under the responsibility of state government. Here the key point is the state legislature will make laws on state list plus concurrent list. So here what is the process? First of all, legislative assembly, and after that legislative council, and finally who is here? Governor. Any bill, first of all, it will be introduced either legislative council or legislative assembly. Okay, let us take example. One bill introduced in legislative assembly. After legislative assembly, that will be sent to legislative council. So even the legislative council is approved that bill, and finally it will be sent to governor approval. So in the legislative powers, legislative assembly having more powers while compared with the legislative council. So on what subjects it will make laws? Majorly it will make laws on state list subjects as well as concurrent list. This is known as the legislative powers of a legislative assembly. So legislative powers of legislative assembly, it will be enjoying more powers while compared with the legislative council. It will make laws on the subjects like state list 61 subjects and concurrent list 52 subjects. First of all, state assembly should approve that bill, and after that it will be sent to legislative council, or legislative council should approve it and it will be sent to legislative assembly, and finally for the approval of a governor. This is a major thing will becomes under the legislative powers of a legislative assembly. So now let us discuss another important function of a legislative assembly, that is financial powers. Financial powers. So the financial powers is nothing but the information related to financial bill. Financial bill means, best example you can take budget matters, the government budget matters. So here in the financial powers, legislative assembly enjoying more power while compared with legislative council. Means the role of legislative council is very less while compared with legislative assembly in the financial matters. So how? Why? What is the reason? Why the legislative council role is very limited? The reason is financial bill must submit first in legislative assembly. That is very, very important point. Generally, except a financial bill, a bill can be introduced either legislative assembly or legislative council. Any bill in the state parliament, either that can be introduced in legislative assembly or legislative council. But here, what is the exception? The financial bill must present first in the legislative assembly. What is the bill? Financial bill. Financial bill first that should be present in legislative assembly. Now here, why the role of legislative assembly is more while compared with legislative assembly? Listen, once the legislative assembly approves financial bill, that bill is sent to legislative council. Legislative council. I hope you are clear, right? Once the legislative assembly approves financial bill, that bill next it will be sent to legislative council. Here, legislative council don't have any power to reject financial bill that sent by legislative assembly. And moreover, legislative council must approve that bill within 14 days of duration. This is very, very important key point you must remember. Within 14 days. Within 14 days duration only, means legislative council can hold financial bill until 14 days. So, and moreover, legislative council don't have any power to reject a financial bill that's sent by legislative assembly. So now, if in case legislative council did not approve that bill even 14 days, then what else? Then what will happen? At that time, legislative assembly will be approves that bill and it will be sent to governor signature. Means legislative council either they can approve the bill within 14 days or else legislative assembly will be decided that legislative council will be approved that one and it will be sent to directly to whom? For governor consent, means governor signature. That is the reason why I told to you legislative assembly enjoying more power while compared with legislative council in what matters? Especially in the matters of financial bill. So that is the reason why legislative assembly and legislative council don't have any power to reject financial bill that's sent by the legislative assembly. That's what the reason why. If the question may ask, the role of legislative assembly is more than legislative council in the financial matters. So justify your statement means you have to write the answer completely. What answer you will write? Legislative council must approve the financial bill within 14 days or else legislative assembly will send that bill directly for the governor approval. So this is known as the financial powers of a legislative assembly. So another important power and function of a legislative assembly, that is executive powers. Executive powers, we can also say that administrative powers. Administrative powers. So now, before we will discuss about administrative power in the previous class, especially in the union government lesson, while we discussing about union cabinet, I discussed with you the union cabinet will be having two kinds of responsibilities. One is individual responsibility and second one is collective responsibility. In the same manner here. So what are the administrative powers of a legislative assembly? Here let us take chief minister plus his council. Here union government means here prime minister is cabinet. State government means here chief minister plus his council. So now here both chief minister and his council of ministers are accountable. They are accountable towards. They are accountable towards legislative assembly. So whatever the questions are arised in legislative assembly, the chief minister and his council of ministers are responsible to give answers for those question answers. So chief minister and his council, they are responsible to give answers for the questions arised in the legislative assembly. Okay, if it is not happens, what happens? If it is not so, then what happens? I told one term to you, that is no confidence motion. No confidence motion. If the chief minister and his council, they are unable to give explanation for the questions in legislative assembly, then no confidence motion bill will introduce in legislative assembly. Simply we can say that chief minister and his council of ministers, they are able to enjoy their power until they are having confidence in legislative assembly. Once they lost their confidence in legislative assembly, then they will introduce no confidence motion bill in the house. Means which house? Legislative assembly. If the bill will be approved, both chief minister and his council, they have to resign from their positions. That's what I told to you. Here council means every minister in that council, they are having individual responsibility. In the same manner, they are having collective responsibility. Example, in Karnataka state, education minister is there. So education minister is responsible for the development of education department. In the same manner, Home Minister will be there. So Home Minister is responsible to maintain law and order in particular state government. That is their individual responsibility. Then what is collective responsibility? All the ministers, including Education Minister, Financial Minister, Health Minister, Home Minister, they are all combinedly responsible towards legislative assembly. That is known as the administrative powers of a legislative assembly. One important key point you must remember in your mind, which is nothing but Chief Minister and his council, they are able to enjoy their power until they are having confidence in the house. Once they lost their confidence, they have to resign from their positions through no confidence motion. What is that? No confidence motion. It is also, we can say that, floor test or no confidence motion. No confidence motion. Now the next function of a legislative assembly, that is electoral powers. Electoral powers. Very easy one. The members of legislative assembly, they have a right to elect. They have a right to elect the following people. Who are they? Means they have the power to elect president. Next, members of legislative council. Members of legislative council and speaker and deputy speaker. So if the question may ask what are the electoral powers of a legislative assembly, means the members of legislative assembly, how can you term the member of a legislative assembly? MLA, member of legislative assembly. So the members of legislative assembly, they have the power to elect the following people. They have their power to elect President of India, and they have their power to elect the members of upper house, which is nothing but legislative council, and they have the right to elect speaker in the house, and after that deputy speaker. So these are the electoral powers. Again I am saying to you, the members of legislative assembly, they have a right to elect the President of India, members of legislative council, speaker, deputy speaker. So these are the electoral powers. And finally, the final power and function of legislative assembly, that is other powers. What are the other powers? Sometimes the legislative assembly, they can hold discussions on the bill passed by the parliament. Bill passed by parliament. Bill passed by parliament. And reports submitted by Public Service Commission or Planning Commission, Finance Commission, anything. Reports submitted by the Planning Commissions or anything. See here, the other powers of a legislative assembly is nothing but legislative assembly can hold meetings on, can hold discussions on the bill passed by the parliament. Example, in the central, in the union parliament, one bill is approved, one bill is passed. So particular state government, they can keep discussion on that bill which is approved by the union parliament, and moreover, whatever the reports submitted by the planning commission, financial commission and other commissions, those reports also they can examine. Those are the major powers and functions of a other powers and functions of a legislative assembly. If the question may ask what are the other powers of a legislative assembly, means You can write Legislative Assembly can hold meetings on the bill passed by the Union Parliament and reports submitted by the public service commissions like Finance Commission, Planning Commission or other important commissions over the particular state government. So these are the major powers and functions of a Legislative Assembly. Children, so far we discussed legislative powers, financial powers, executive powers, electoral powers and finally the other powers. So this is the major content which is related to the complete concept of a legislative assembly. So children, if the state legislature having two houses, then we can call it as bicameral legislature. Bicameral. So if the question may ask what is bicameral legislature means, what you will write? If the state legislature having two houses, that is legislative assembly and legislative council, that is known as bicameral legislature. So in the state legislature terminology we can say that legislative assembly Vidhana Sabha and legislative council Vidhana Parishad. So just now we completed the content regarding legislative assembly. Now let us move on to legislative council. So what type of legislature Karnataka having here? Bicameral legislature means legislative council plus legislative assembly. So here legislative council. So we can call it as Vidhana Parishad. Vidhana Parishad. So now, today in this class, let us talk about a small introduction about legislative council or Vidhana Parishad. So in the previous class, I gave you one question, right? What is the question? Why some states in India only having bicameral legislature? Only some states having bicameral. Only some states having bicameral legislature. What is the reason here? Why? So among that some states, Karnataka also one of the important states. What is the reason? Why there is a bicameral here? And why some states they don't have bicameral legislation? Remember, if the state having one state, that too legislative assembly means that is unicameral. Legislative council also means that is known as bicameral. Here I will give you the result. If the state want to have legislative council means the members of legislative council must be 1/3 of legislative assembly. Members of legislative council. Members of legislative council must be 1/3 of legislative assembly. Legislative assembly. It will be one condition, right? And one more condition, or at least members should not be less than 40. These are the two conditions must be. First of all, the members of legislative council must be 1/3 of legislative assembly. And one more important factor, the members of legislative council should not be less than 40. More than 40 means they can have legislative council. But if the members of legislative council will be less than 40, in that states you won't find legislative council. And more importantly, in that states they are only following unicameral legislature. Okay, let us take Karnataka state as example, right? Total number of members in Legislative Assembly in Karnataka 225. What is 225 here? The total number of members in Karnataka Legislative Assembly. In that you take 1/3 means what? You just divide 225 into 3 parts. How much? 75 plus 75 plus 75, right? One part you can take 75. So here the total members in Legislative Council, that is 75. In Karnataka, the total members in Legislative Council, that is 75, which is 1/3 of the members of Legislative Assembly. And moreover, 75 is more than 40, right? That is the reason why Karnataka having bicameral type of legislature. So the total members in Karnataka Legislative Council, that is 75, right? Now, from where these 75 are elected? From where these 75 members are elected? Now here, the members of Legislative Council are elected from 5 areas. The members of Legislative Council are elected from 5 areas. First one will be Legislative Assembly. Legislative Assembly. The second one is local government. The third one, graduates. Graduate means who? The people who are completed graduation degree holders. They are known as graduates. So now, and one more, teacher constituency. Teachers constituency. So here Legislative Assembly, local government, graduates, teacher constituency, and finally some of the members in Legislative Council, they are appointed by governor. See, that the total members of Legislative Council means the total members of Vidhana Parishad in Karnataka, they are from 5 areas. One is Legislative Assembly, local government, graduate constituency, teacher constituency, and finally governor. Here, the people who are expert from different fields like sports, literature, art, or any kind of activity, whoever the people are expert, those peoples are appointed by the governor as a member of Legislative Council. So here the members of Legislative Councils are represented from the 5 areas, which are nothing but members of Legislative Assembly, local government. What is local government? Local government is nothing but Jilla Panchayat, Taluk Panchayat, and Gram Panchayat. And graduates, teacher constituency, and finally some of the members of Legislative Council, they are appointed by the governor of a particular state. Finally, upper house in a state legislature, that is known as Legislative Council. Lower house in the state legislature, that is known as Legislative Assembly. What is Legislative Council? The upper house in the state legislature, that is known as Legislative Council. So this is all about the introduction of Legislative Council. So in the next class we will discuss the powers and functions of a Legislative Council. So my dear children, in this class so far we discussed the powers and functions of Legislative Assembly, and after that some of the introduction about Legislative Council, and I gave you answer for the question which I am given in the previous video, which is nothing but why some states having bicameral legislature in India. Why? What is the reason? The reason also I mentioned here. So this is all about today's session. We will meet again in the next session to discuss the major powers and functions of Legislative Council. Thank you children. Have a nice day.